Hi there, everyone. Lars and Scott here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and today we are talking about the insanity, the awesomeness, the anime that might just melt your mind, Dandadan.
I wasn't. I knew it was going to be absolutely insane. I wasn't quite ready for the actual insanity of it all. It, especially animated. Like you read the manga and you don't have the genuine reactions and the pacing and everything really worked out. I mean, you can show a lot of that in manga or writing, but when it's animated like that and it's just boom, 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 you're just kind of left in awe, like trying to comprehend everything that's happening. And I think that so it's that pace, it's like the craziness that it's instilling in that constant flow of motion that allows it to just kind of steamroll over some issues it kind of has, but you don't really care by the end of it because it's like, oh, the good guys survived. They've got more to do, but they survived and they're gonna keep fighting onwards.
Mm-hmm. The animators deserve massive praise and accolades for this. I remember when the first teaser trailers started coming out for this, and seeing some of the earlier footage, I was like, oh, that just looks so janky. I don't know if I can get into this, but this episode really blew me away with just the fluidity. It
Mm-hmm.
felt like Studio Trigger was were the people behind this. That's not the case, but it's like, oh, okay, I know what I'm in for now.
Yeah,
Not
it's
really.
like good old fashioned Fooly Cooley level, like shenanigans and craziness. It's like Studio Trigger from the Fooly Cooley days made similar story to Chainsaw Man. Like they kind of meshed them together
Mm-hmm.
and just absolutely insane and crazy because of it.
Oh man, I love this. Now then, for those of you who happen to have clicked onto this video and are like, so what the heck even is Dandadan? Uh, Basically, real quick, the plot is that you got a boy, you got a girl. Can I make it any more obvious? Uh, you got the girl who just broke up with her jerkwad boyfriend, is looking for a way to blow off some steam, and ends up kind of stepping in to prevent a bunch of guys from bullying this otaku as he's reading a UFO magazine. She's looking for a fight. The guys back off. She doesn't get the fight. She storms off, and the otaku comes is like, you like UFOs, and it then proceeds to lead to an argument. She's like, I do not believe in aliens, I believe in ghosts. He's like, ghosts don't exist. So they challenge each other to go and basically experience aliens or experience ghosts, and they both do, and it is utterly horrifying what happens to them, with the boy getting possessed by Turbo Granny and the girl being abducted by aliens to be artificially inseminated. Yay! Insanity ensues, powers are used, ships are blown out of the air, and no one is here to witness any of it other than the horrified audience and the two main characters.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just like taking classic tropes that comes to aliens and ghosts, because we've definitely seen the aliens in the haunted old hotel or hospital kind of thing before. I'm thinking of Birdie the Mighty did that a long while back. But you also have the haunted tunnel ghost
Always
stories.
The haunted tunnel.
Yeah,
always the haunted tunnel.
It's a really big thing in Japan. You'll find different haunted tunnels all over the place. So they're really well known haunted spots, and it's let's lean into the history, the trope of these locations, but make them so much worse.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it gets pretty bad when you have a boy being possessed by Turbo Granny going around eating alien dongs. Yeah.
See, and this is something I feel like we don't see as much in anime because like it's starting to get more mainstream. They're starting to make more stories that are fit into the mainstream environment in a worldwide setting.
Yeah,
And then
more palatable.
yeah, but this is a callback to like back in the day when they'd come up with absolutely insane anime. This like takes a bunch of those and throws it in together and then just flash speed like level of shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
it doesn't stop, but like it reminds me of like all of these older anime that weren't afraid to get crazy.
oh yeah, no, this definitely has Fooly Cooly vibes. Where it's just like whatever we want to do, we're going to do it, and we
Mm-hmm.
are not going to bat an eye whatsoever.
Right.
Now
Oh,
then,
man.
now that since we brought up, we might as well address that. Since this anime and the manga do flirt and just outright go into some pretty dark spaces or
Right.
some really bizarre spaces at times, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, I'm not sure if I'm entirely comfortable with this. I don't like it. And we for ourselves, like we've discussed this, and I say that I myself, like, I enjoy what I'm seeing right here as an author. Like, I'm okay with where the humor goes, with his pacing, with his dark tones, but it's something that needs to be properly balanced. And the story needs to basically lean into this insanity, because if it tried to pull its punches, it would then feel like it's basically just trying to do a gotcha moment. It would feel like it's using a trope in the worst way possible, because it knows that degenerates are going to be salivating over this, but then never actually really delivering. But in the case of Dandadan, it's like, no, we're not just using a trope to reel you in. We're not just using some horrifying situation or some tantalizing situation to pull you in. This is part of the story to help ground you in the insanity of this world of spirits, aliens, crazy technology, and how these two kids just happen to be stuck in the middle of it.
Right. And there's a caveat here of if you're really not comfortable with some of this stuff, like you've got the girl character, she's basically like strapped down, non-consenting, and you have these aliens that want to like sexually assault her. If you're not comfortable with that, then it's perfectly fine if you don't like the show or if you don't want to watch the show. I'm pretty sure that's the only case of that happening in the show, and it's going to be kind of more of a Goblin Slayer kind of feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you see it once and then you move on.
yeah, but even then, if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to be comfortable with it. I just feel like this kind of situation when you're setting up bad guys and you want them to really be bad, setting up a situation like this, or with the Turbo Granny that you're going to get cursed, it's going to be really bad. Like setting up a situation where there's actual physical consequences that mean more than just being killed can really make the bad guys worse and make the accomplishment of our main characters of beating those bad guys feel more deserved, more well earned when they do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is what is often referred to as like kicking the dog, where the bad guy shows just how bad they are by doing something. Like, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that, but you did it because you're an evil bastard. Now then,
and it makes me think of Sho Tucker from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, who would have expected within like in the first 4 episodes of like a 70 episode long show that you're gonna have somebody like so evil, so callous, like, and do something like that. And it really sets the tone for the rest of the show, because you see a lot of like fun, goofy shenanigans up to that point, and then you've got that happen, and you're like, oh, this is a different show than like I have any idea of. And I think Dandadan does something similar here, where it's like, no, there's like some serious consequences to what they're dealing with now. I mean, there's a lot of shenanigans on how they like handle it and get through it. It's absolutely insane. but you have to understand the consequences are up there because of this.
Yeah, exactly. Setting the stakes, because this show is more than just the wacky silliness. It's
Mm-hmm.
more than just the crazy over the top fights. There is substance to what is happening. There's substance to the plot. There's substance to the character arcs, and and it is okay in a comedy to actually lean a little bit more into those darker aspects. If you do it right, you can balance out the horror and the comedy really, really
Mm-hmm.
well. So that what, because like even though Dandadan goes totally over the top, there's then this aspect to it that drags you back down to a horrifying earth. You're like, holy cow! If it wasn't for the shenanigans, you would be screwed.
Mm-hmm. And I could definitely see this story playing out in a completely different light if you lowered the shenanigans, if you made it a slightly more realistic. You could still have the insanity of it, but it could be like just a full-on horror, like no
Mm-hmm.
comedy at all if you do it the right way. Um, but I think it's really fun in this regard that they didn't go that route, that they chose to embrace the insanity of it and like lean into the crazy.
Yeah. So that's the dark and heavy part of our review analysis right
Mm-hmm.
there. But because we are a channel by novice authors for novice authors, we also want to have a look at like why should anyone other than for the entertainment value pay attention to this anime? What can actually be gleaned from it and learned from it in order to improve your own writing craft?
Mm-hmm. I think we've already touched on it a little bit, but just the pacing involved makes a big difference. If you're gonna write like really spastic, energetic characters like this, having the story move like fast paced, having events happen boom, 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 and happening all at once at the same time will lead to a faster paced, more entertaining story in this regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the levels of insanity that's going on here, like uh, two kids who don't know each other immediately challenging each other to ridiculous dares. Those dares turning out to be real, and not just real, but real in the worst ways possible.
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of dark humor, it has to go fast. Otherwise, whatever jokes are there to balance out the darkness is kind of gone. And
Right.
throughout this episode, all of the fluff is trimmed. The only thing that you could even say is kind of like fluffy or meaty or fatty uh, is the conversation that the two of them have when they're
Mm-hmm.
on their respective dares,
Yeah.
and they're talking about so why do you like aliens? Do I need a reason to like aliens? Well, everyone's got a reason to like something. And then the girl says, I like ghosts. I believe in ghosts because of my grandma. And she shares the story about her
Mm-hmm.
and her grandma, which was nice. It made these characters feel way more realistic and relatable right before everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Well, and it's that relatability that like makes it so important. It's tying us to these characters before they go through this absolutely harrowing experience. And so we're already emotionally attached to that. And I love how in just one episode it did not feel like 20 minutes of like animated anime time. It
Oh
felt
no.
so much longer than that. But just in this short episode, we're already like emotionally invested in not only the characters but their backgrounds and like the world they live in just one like episode. And it reminds me a lot of the guidance you receive when you're looking into writing short stories, because when you're writing a short story you want every sentence, every word to hold as much meaning as possible, sometimes 2-3 times the meaning like a longer story would have, just so you
Mm-hmm.
can condense it down. And Dandadan does a wonderful job of condensing everything down, having stuff mean more than just what you hear on the outset. So I imagine this will be a fun anime to rewatch a couple of times, just because you're going to get more of that meaning out of it each time you watch it.
Mm-hmm. I've already watched this episode twice, and it's still just as enjoyable as was the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's good, and knowing some of the stuff that's supposed to happen later on it's like this episode's also doing some good heavy lifting to set stuff up for later.
Right.
This is it, like it is its own, it's its own condensed story. It can stand on its own without anything else, but it is setting up it's setting up more to happen in the future. And like that's when a story's doing a good job, because like you want to when you're writing, if you're writing a show or a book, each chapter or episode is effectively its own sustained story. It needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. It needs to feel complete by the time that you get to the end, but it also needs to set up what's supposed to happen in the next chapter, in the next episode. And too often, especially these days, people are like, oh, it's all just going to blend together. And so chapters and episodes feel more like a chore because you're now slogging through so many to get to that distant endpoint. But in Dandadan, when that ending hits, that ending has hit, and our main gal, she's gone on a complete, a little emotional and romantic arc. It's just which is beautiful.
Yeah, and here's my thing, like going forward, like you've got so much fast-paced stuff going on. How are you gonna continue that? And I feel like it can go in like at least two, possibly more ways. But like the first one is you can slow the action down, you can slow a lot of that insanity down, but you have to swap it for something else. So that romantic intrigue between the characters. Or you either have to keep the pace going at the same rate. From what I remember reading of the manga, it kind of does both, actually. Because you still have the stakes, like the main character, he's lost his dingaling. He's you know what I mean? Like he's still very much cursed, and so has to deal with the consequences of that. And from the manga, it doesn't give him a lot of time to process that before they have to confront the Turbo Granny kind of idea. So like, but they also have their like relationship growing and them reacting to each other in that regard as well. So it just, you have to, like, if you're going to start the story in that kind of pace, you either got to swap out the like action that kept the pace moving with something of equal value, romantic intrigue. You could do like political intrigue as well. You can have character interactions. You just got to keep them moving as fast as you did the action before. Because you bog down, people get bored. People get bored easily, and when they've already, like, their excitement levels have already been pushed like to the max, especially with the first episode like that, you throw something slower at them, they're gonna lose interest real quick.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like if you go speeding down the highway, you're going well above the speed limit, and everything is just whoosh, 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 whoosh. And then the moment that you actually like slow down to the actual speed limit, it can still be pretty fast, but then everything feels so slow. And that's the problem, that's the risk that you take when starting off right out of the gates with such a fast-paced story.
Yep.
I think I would also throw, as far as like some writing insights and advice go, is that writing a crazy story or writing crazy characters needs to have something that still grounds the audience and grounds the story in some semblance of normalcy. Now, then, of course, people are going to be like, well, what's normal? Because everyone's got their own variation of normal that someone else finds weird. But that aside, there's general things that are normal. Within Dandadan, especially within the first episode, there's no straight man. And most writers will say you need to have a straight man to help balance out the insanity. Someone who is going to be like questioning why all of this randomness is happening. Why does it have to be done this way? This just seems stupid. You're weird. You're crazy. And that can be a whole lot of fun. But in this case, there's no straight man. However, the characters still feel in a way grounded within a real world. And that's in part thanks to their conversations and the chemistry, but also because, at least at this point within the story, The rest of the world is acting normal. People aren't running around screaming about the fact that there's aliens. The cursed tunnel is properly, at least somewhat, blocked off. Don't enter here; it's dangerous. And while some of the friends and some of the classmates seem to be a little bit funky, it's high school. They're weird, and so it comes across as very normal.
Mm-hmm.
They live in a normal world. It just happens to be that these two are now find themselves at the center of a lot of insanity really, really fast.
And another concern that just kind of crossed my mind, though, is when you're already setting the stakes as high as they are, how do you go about upping those stakes for the finale? Because, like, if you're already set them really high, then you either got to go even bigger in scope, or, and I think it might be a better way to go about it, you make it more emotional, more meaningful for the characters, and like if your audience is properly attached to those characters, it means more to them at that point as well. Or even better, you do both.
I think a good point of comparison right here is with the Wheel of Time. So at the very beginning, you know that the stakes are the end of the world. The world is going to end unless the Dark One is defeated. That is very, very clearly stated. And sure, like there's big battles and cool stuff that happens throughout the series, but what sustains the fact that the world is going to end and that you should care about it 14 books in is that it becomes personal. You become emotionally attached to these characters and to their relationships. They have lives that you do not want to end because you love them so much. And so you want them to win. And so when you set the stakes already really high at the beginning of the story, the adventure is an emotional one rather than a power level one.
Right. Well, and it kind of makes me think of like One Punch Man. Like, you already know he's gonna defeat everybody with one punch.
Yeah.
Like it's in the title, and so you end up not watching it for the fights. You end up watching it for the characters. You want to see like them, like the other characters struggle, and then kind of the slapstickness of like Saitama coming in and just blowing something away. But you also have like Saitama's inner struggle involved with, that's too easy, I'm so bored, I'm depressed. Like, it's about that struggle more than it is the physical like fights in that regard.
And it's also about the side characters as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to know so much about the side characters before they get the stuffing knocked out of them, and then Saitama comes and wins with one punch, which then adds the comedy, the catharsis to all of that heaviness that's been like one or two episodes built up.
Right, and I think, like, especially based off of like what I've read in the manga, what I've seen in the like opening and closing music videos, is that in Dandadan they are going to add more of these characters that are gonna mesh in different ways with the two main ones. I already know of like the Turbo Granny, the girl's actual grandma, plus a few others. Like, they're gonna make this more interesting as it goes.
Yeah. This is going to be exciting. I am really excited to see how this story continues to unfold, and also how people react to it. Because actually, to quickly jump back to One Punch Man, I remember when season 1 was going, that there were a bunch of people who were really upset about what happened with the fights, because they're just like, this doesn't make any sense. Why? It's like, it's not about the fights. It's about everything surrounding them. And so it'll be interesting to see how people react to Dandadan as this season unfolds, because are they going to be cluing in on the characters, which is where the heart of the story is, or are they going to be cluing in more into just the insane antics of aliens and ghosts and then the battles that ensue. Because that can be really fun, but that can also be very overwhelming or confusing with how Dandadan is written.
Well, and I think another thing, and it's something that a lot of anime and manga make the mistake of, is they want to extend their story as far as possible because it's a serial like kind of story. They wanted to keep selling, they wanted to keep going into the manga every like twice a month, once a month, what however many times the like manga is sold, like
Mm-hmm.
in like Shonen Jump or Shoujo Beat or one of those. You get the idea.
Yeah.
And so they keep extending it. And with a story like this, if you go the route of focusing on like the aliens and the ghosts, you can just endlessly extend the story. But like, what's the point? Like, it's just going to be continual battle after battle after battle, and the character interactions and the drama stop mattering as much at that point.
Yeah. And when that happens, people just start checking out, and you lose the plot. You lose what made the story good in the first place.
There's only one story, and it has a very specific fan base, and I think that's One Piece that like gets away with doing that. But that's because it's also about the characters so much.
You were very bold to say that, because I offered like a little bit of criticism about One Piece, and I received for a month all these people coming in to explain to me how I was wrong.
And I could be wrong. I haven't looked that much into One Piece, and I'm willing to admit that. But I feel like One Piece does that, but it succeeds at doing that because it's very much about the characters and their reactions and like their interactions with the world.
Mm-hmm. And if there's any way to like really like round all of this off, is to come back to something that I love quoting Nathan on, where he said, "A story lives or dies by its characters."
Mm-hmm.
And so Dandadan will succeed or it will fail based on how it handles its two leads.
Yep.
And basically that will go the same with your own stories. If you're not taking care of your own characters, then what's the point? You can write the coolest scenes ever, but who cares?
Yep.
Well, all right. So we'll wrap it on up here. If you haven't checked out Dandadan yet, at least it gets a hearty recommendation from me. Give it a try. If it's not your cup of tea, that's absolutely fine. If it is, if you enjoy it, strap yourself in, because it's going to be a wild ride.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with all that being said, if you'd like to support the work that we do here at Camille's Harem, liking, commenting, sharing this video out there is always very helpful. And if you'd like to see some of our own crazy stories, links for them are in the description below. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next time, y'all, make sure that you do not get abducted by aliens at abandoned hospitals or going into cursed tunnels and getting taken over by turbo grannies, because that just absolutely sucks. And choose.
Okini.